The minimum amount of time it takes a diver to ascend safely to the surface varies directly with the depth of the diver. How long does it take a diver to ascend safely from a depth of 450 feet? So the key piece of information we have is varies directly. This is going to be a direct variation. And even if it didn't give us that piece of information, we can see from the graph that we start at 0, 0, and that the graph is linear, meaning it has a constant rate of change. So let's take a minute just to look at this graph and see if we can kind of figure out what it's telling us. So 0, 0 means if the depth of the diver is 0 feet, then the minimum time it takes him to ascend to the surface is 0 minutes. If you're already at the surface, it takes you 0 minutes to get to the surface. Makes sense. This point right here, 62, means if he's 60 feet below the surface, it would take him 2 minutes to ascend to the surface. And then this point way out here is, looks like, what is that? In between 240 and 300 is 270. So if you're 270 feet below the surface, it takes you a minimum of 9 minutes to get back to the surface. Now the question is, how long would it take him to get to the surface if he was 450 feet below the surface, or a depth of 450 feet? And as you can see, the graph doesn't go that high. So it's not a simple matter of just looking at the graph and saying, okay, here's 450, let's go see where the line is. So what we're going to have to do is use this graph to write a direct variation equation. And then after we have the equation, we will use it to figure out what is the minimum time when depth equals 450. So the graph does already tell us what our x and y values are going to be. Depth is on the x-axis, so x is going to be the depth in feet. And of course, our y is the minimum time, so minimum time in, not seconds, in minutes. Okay, and then the only number that we need to write a direct variation is that constant of variation, which is k. So k is our mystery number. K is what we need to figure out. And once we know k, we can write the equation, because all direct variation equations are written as y equals kx. So I got to figure out what k is. Well, the constant of variation, k, is exactly the same thing as slope in this context. I need to know what the slope of that line is. And finding the slope from a graph is pretty simple. All we have to do is get 2 points and then count the rise over run between those 2 points. So from counting rise over run, I kind of want to pick 2 points that are number one, easy to read, and then number two, sort of close together. So I don't want to use like 0, 0, and then that 279, because I don't want to count that much. So let's just use these 2 points right here at the beginning. Let's use 0, 0, and the 62. So this would be my rise, and this would be my run. And that seems like it's going to be the smallest amount of work for me because those 2 points are really close together. So the rise, obviously, is going to be 2, because I went up 2. It looks like the run is also 2 because I'm going over 2 squares, but I'm not counting by 2's on the x-axis. I'm counting by 30's. So when I go over 2 squares, I'm actually going over a total of 60. So the run is 60. So the rise over run is 2 over 60. Okay, so rise over run equals 2 over 60, which will reduce to 1 over 30, and that's my value of k. All right, so now I have enough information to write my equation. My equation was y equals kx, and I now know that k is 1 over 30. So I can do y equals 1 over 30 x. Okay, So now I've done part one, which is to find the equation, but the reason we did part one and found the equation was so we could do part two, answering the actual question, how long does it take a diver to ascend safely from a depth of 450 feet? So that means when the depth is 450, what's the amount of time? So if we go back and look at what we wrote at the very beginning, depth is our value of x, time is our value of y. So what this question is asking is, when x is 450 feet, what is y? So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our equation and we're going to replace or substitute the x with 450. So y equals 1 over 30, and then instead of x, we're going to put 450. So we want to do 1/30th times 450, or if we went ahead and just multiplied those together, it's the same thing as 450 divided by 30. And 450 divided by 30 is 15. It's the same thing as 45 divided by 3, 15. 15 what? 15 minutes, because our y is measured in minutes. So we'll say a diver at a depth of 450 feet would need a minimum of not 9 minutes, derp, a minimum of 15 minutes to ascend to the surface. So our answer is 15, but we don't want to just write 15 and call it a day. We want to say what the 15 means. 15 means how many minutes it would take if you were at a depth of 450 feet to ascend all the way to the surface.